Hey everybody, looks like we've got a solid couple of you logging in. We'll give it just a couple seconds to let anybody else join. If you have any questions, go ahead, start putting them in the Q&A or in the chat, and we'll get it going.
Hey, Caitlin, I'm sorry. I know that you're already getting us started. Thank you for that.
Hey, that's okay. Looks like we've got one in the Q&A.
Okay, let me just.
In the chat
now. And you can see my screen okay, right?
Yep.
Man, I am running behind here. What is our question? What question are we pulling up? Caitlin, can you help me?
Got it in the chat. File data. Does the byte array?
From Chris. Okay.
Yep.
And Chris, all right. Does the byte array in a file data structure hold the entire file in memory? Could a remove item by index step be used to remove the first byte of the file content? It does. The byte array is, when you have the byte array in the flow, you do have the entirety of that file's contents available to you in that flow's memory space to make up a phrase, right? You do. It is the whole thing. It's not a reference to it. You actually have the entire file data. So you could sometimes you might download a file from like from an FTP server, and that gives you back file data, and you might convert that to a string, right? Using get string from bytes or something, and then start dealing with it, assuming, of course, that it's that it's a text document of some sort. So remove item by index be used to remove the first byte? Probably, but why, Chris? Why would you need to? Why are you trying to remove the first byte of a flow of a document?
Well, it would actually be the first three. So what I've done on my own is I've been able to check that we're receiving a UTF CSV file in UTF-8, but with a byte order mark at the start. So I've been able to verify that I can inspect the first 3 bytes and recognize that, okay, that's the byte array mark that is unwelcome, and that and what I learned from the ticket recently is that if I, send that to the iterate Excel or CSV structure to kind of try and iterate the content, it doesn't recognize the byte order mark on a UTF-8 file. So that ends up slipping into the sort of first cell of the first row in some strange way. And I thought, well, maybe what I should try and do is figure out, is there a way to, as it were, skip those first 3 characters? And that's what has me wondering, well, if my first step is to read file, get file data from file, which ends up providing me this structure.
Mm-hmm.
And then the structure has a byte array. And if that byte array is everything, then my thinking is, well, am I crazy to try and remove the first 3 bytes by taking away those 3, by doing remove item by index, just hit 0 3 times, and then go off to the load, read loop through this CSV content. But it's one of those things where it's like, okay, that starts with the assumption that the array is there and that I can go ahead and fiddle with it in this way. And that's where I start to wonder if I'm starting to step into places that my foot's not welcome to go.
Okay, so the problem is that a file with a certain encoding is misbehaving when you pass it into one of the Excel, like the import Excel or for each Excel CSV steps.
Yeah, the for each Excel or CSV step, what I was told is that it does not support UTF-8 encoding with a BOM at the start.
Mm-hmm.
And so, well, I mean, the good news is right before I go into that for each, Excel CSV step, I can inspect the byte array and say, oh, okay, I can see that's a BOM marker as opposed to it being a clean UTF-8 file. And now I'm trying to figure out how would I correct it if I know that the BOM is there.
Mm. It could be that that's specific to that step. Like maybe the other steps are not behaving the same. Like there's like import Excel CSV. It might be worth a check just to pass that in and see if this behaves differently. Or CSV to list even.
Well, I noticed this step has an input file encoding. Now, I don't know how much mileage we'll get out of that.
Oh, look at that. Yeah.
But on the other hand, I was told UTF-8 with BOM is not supported.
Is that, I don't want to assume, but that might be either, that might be a response from support, assuming that just because the way it works today means how it's supposed to work, as opposed to maybe it's just not, it hasn't been written to consider that, right? Those could, yeah, it's hard to say. I don't know why, I don't know why we would have told you that. I think it's worth a shot to try this import Excel CSV step, Chris. It's faster. It's significantly faster than the for each Excel CSV as well. It's a little bit of a pain to configure if you've got a lot of columns, but it's I would give this a shot. I guess you could hack off. I guess you could try to, you do have the whole file array, so you could theoretically find a way to hack off pieces of it. I don't know what that does once you to the file data. I mean, I guess you could confirm it's fine if you try that and then send it to a download link and then download it to your local and confirm you can still open this, CSV or whatever this file is on your local. If you can still open it and it renders fine, then I guess you've made a safe change. I don't know. Sounds dicey.
This import Excel, what does, I'm confused. So it doesn't do an iteration thing.
It does.
What?
Yeah, it gives you, it does the looping inside of itself. You get outside of it. So like you define like an output type called, I'll just say account. And then let's assume you have 5 properties, you have 5 columns. You come in and you map, say, this account ID is column 1 and email address is column 2, and you specify if it can be null, blah, blah, blah. And then you do all of those, and then output is a list of accounts. It does all the mapping in this step and gives you your object list out. So it doesn't loop in the, from a design perspective, but it does iterate the list and move, so you get it out, and it's very fast, like blazingly fast.
And we get a list of these results out is what happens here.
Yeah, so usually it'd be like a flow structure or something you created to hold the columns of your CSV, and then you've got a defined type collection that you can mess with, respective to whatever the task at hand.
Curious. All right. So we don't know if the UTF-8 encoding here is going to recognize and discard the byte order mark or not, which would need a test. And if I find that it doesn't actually ignore the byte order mark, what can we do? What can we do about that with starting out when I have the file data? Because I can look at the file data and recognize that, hey, the byte order mark is there.
I don't know, honestly, not off the top of my head, how we would handle that. but I'm certain we can. Like I remember this happened when we did some changes like serialization at one point. We had there was something about adding encodings, deserialize maybe. We added like encodings. Where did we? Or maybe it's only XML. Yeah, output encodings, and then we were getting like include bomb. Yeah, I remember we've hit some versions of this before, not specific to file data, but with some XML serialization. So here's what I'd say: try with just see if this step works or not. If it does, great, the question answered. And if not, shoot me a note and then we can figure something out. Like I don't know, we'll have to. I don't know if maybe we look at the support ticket and then we can see. But I don't think. I'm sure we can handle this or should handle this. Maybe is a better way to say it without you trying to manually muck with a byte array of file data as it progresses through your flow, just to make it sort of usable. Even if it has to be something like a custom step or something dumb.
Well, and that's where I found myself wondering. It's almost like I was looking at building a flow that would accept a file data input and then return a file data that would be sort of the same, but chop off the first 3 bytes if those first 3 bytes happen to be the UTF-8 bomb.
Right.
Which got me to the question mark of is what I'm pretending to do there a sensible thing to do?
Yeah, I mean, if you can get that to work, sure. I'm just not going to advise that you do that because it sounds risky for reasons I'm not sure I can put into words. I've just never seen anyone need to do it. And there's likely a better approach, but if that works, that's fine. But I think trying this import Excel CSV step is worth a quick test since it does have a concept of encoding.
All right. We'll hope for that. That will be plan A then. And I guess plan B is follow up with you about what might we do? And plan C would be make this crazy flow to actually do the conversion.
Right.
All right, then.
Okay. All right, here we go. Murray's got a question here. Is there a built-in, do you mind getting all the questions just pre-populated in the chat so people have a chance to see them ahead of time, please? Caitlin, is there a built-in step that will either close a form or return the user to a dashboard page? Searching close didn't seem to bring up anything relevant. Yeah, the step you're looking for is going to be called end form session. End form session is like a special type of end form that has different behaviors. We often use like open URL to open like a workflow in a new tab for someone, Murray. Okay. But you can also navigate users. There's like a navigate. In navigate, you put a folder ID and a page name in. So you could have users click close on a form and then hit an in-form session step, which would navigate them to a dashboard, say showing all of their submissions or something like that.
Perfect. That's what I needed. Okay. Never considered using N-form.
Yeah, it's an example of us not having the world's best naming convention, but the in-form session step is a pretty neat step. It does a lot of cool stuff. So that's probably the step you're looking for.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay, Tyson, is there a possibility to get an example of a truth or rule table in front of an evaluate dynamic expression to select which equation to use and pass through into the evaluate dynamic expression? Okay, interesting. Oh, don't make it easy on me, sir. You want to dynamically select the string to pass into a dynamic expression step?
Yeah, Happy New Year, Will. Just you know.
So
be curious to see what you can do.
Yeah, so here, this would be, how do we define, I haven't used this in forever. Do we define variables in some way here?
Yeah, so when you do the evaluate expression, that's how it does, and then it gives you the option to do inputs. Okay. What I've done, like in my testing, I've just done like merge plain text and then go and select the variable directly.
Okay.
But I can't get this dynamic expression to like have inputs like you would here. Yeah.
Right, so that gives us A plus B. And then this won't give you inputs, so you have to build up. So you want to take in,
So like, we'll do an easy example, right? So at the table in front, if it's true, then we want to do A plus B. If the table in front is false, we want to do A minus B.
right? Now the number of terms is dynamic. You want to be able to count for 3, 4, or an unlimited number of terms.
It'll be 3 terms regardless of the formula we use.
Okay. Well, I think if you could like, you just, and I don't know anything about this step. Bear with me as I learn live.
No, you're good.
Does that actually run and return 8? Okay, so it does the math. So as long as you can concoct a string here and then merge. So maybe it's something like this. We could use like a in velocity. In velocity. Now we'd have to have a different template. So if I think the sort of the brute force way might just be use runtime select in the default expression step, right? And in here, you just hit runtime select, have a subflow, a couple subflows, each of which is one of your options. Runtime select the appropriate subflow, and then just have it be defined. That's kind of what that would work. It's
okay,
right. You could just have a folder full, evaluate expression functions, right?
Yeah.
And that folder could have a design pattern on it. So
Okay.
you could add new ones. And then your
That-
truth table just specifies the ID to call.
ID to run. Yeah, that will definitely work. Okay, cool.
Oh, does that give you what you want?
I mean, it will, yes, but I'm not going to stop you from trying end velocity because I remember you showed me the step like when we first came on to
Yeah.
decisions.
So here, but we would still like this would be, we'd still have to have 5 or X, you'd have, X number of these steps to kind of build the thing up.
Mhm.
Though if you just pass the string, because here you can define, like if you use $, you could say A plus $B, that'll give you A and B. And then you can pass A and B in, and then you'd get a string called merge string out, which would be, 5 plus 3, and you could pass that into your dynamic expression step. But you'd be doing, now you could do A plus B $, math operator. And then that way you could specify, you could get a value for math operator. And so I could say, I could pass values A and B plus a particular operation. But if you need to, and then the truth table could output value 1 value, value 2 value, I guess value 3 value. And then, but I don't know how, this might quit this, math operator 2. This would probably get out of, this would probably not be very functional after a short period of time.
Yeah.
I think probably the runtime select gives you more flexibility, because then as long as the 3 terms and the results are the same, then you can do any number of operations. You just need to identify, the truth table just needs to identify the, all the truth table has to do is pull out the ID. It just needs to return the ID of the flow to call, right? And then
Exactly, yeah.
And honestly, you don't even need a truth table. If you wanted to use more of like a data-driven design, you could just use an entity that has the ID and then have a dashboard. And then theoretically, you could put into someone's hands the ability to select which flow and or create new flows only in a particular folder, so that you could have them add custom evaluate expression subflows that bind to an entity. That is an option there. But yeah, I think runtime select with evaluate expression and the truth table returning the IDs, the appropriate ID, and then passing the values into the runtime selected flow is going to be the most straightforward here.
Yeah, brilliant. Cool. I just tried that end velocity step and that it actually works really well. So
Yeah, it's like my favorite step. I was showing everyone yesterday on the call my table builder flow that heavily leverages this to build up dynamic HTML tables for emails that we have in the forum. Yeah, I personally love this step. It's quite nice.
sweet. Cool. Thanks, Will.
You bet, man. Happy to help. All right, anonymous attendee. Is there a way to make a snapshot of an in-session form when it is being submitted? No, you can only get view completed actions on an assignment. So you'd have to make the form assigned to see it, or you could write its information into a comment. Yeah, it'd have to be assigned. Maybe you delete the assignment later and have it get cleaned up. But no, right now you can't see, there's no information unless you add comments or a custom entity into the case or the process folder for you to see a submitted in session form right now. That data lives, currently we save that data in the assignment handler data table, and that data only gets populated when the in session form is modified to an assigned form. So right now you have to use an assigned form to do that. Okay, and then we're on to Catherine Jensen here. We are looking for a way to extract real-time data on dependencies between workflows and the database tables they access to help manage change. Okay, Catherine, are you familiar with our dependency browser at all?
No, it's, and it's been a really long time since I've been through training. I'm actually on point for the underlying database and the data inputs, so I would probably benefit from that. But we are definitely looking to extract it and use it as data in a dynamic way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so we have a dependency browser. If you go to a flow or any object in decisions, including like a connection, and go to dependency and click browse dependencies, it's going to give you a dependency browser. Now, that was a terrible example. Let me find my import flow, import wizard. And now import wizard, and I do browse dependencies, it's going to show me the things that it depends on. So it uses all of these things. And then if anything depends on it, it'll show the bottom here. So if I just click into here, now I can see that import this upload file import form, it has a dependency on a CSS document, and it is used by these two flows. Now, this is just using the GUI, right? But the GUI pulls its data from two tables. Those tables are going to be the module resource table. That is where everything gets bound to its project name. If I run for module
resource, okay.
Yeah, correct. Module resource, you'll see has and I'll put two things in my select statement here: entity ID, I think, and then module name. Right. And so here, like, let's see something that's part of a non-decisions core. So I have a project here now named ASDF, and this is the ID of the thing that is in that project. So that's the first piece.
Okay.
Right? This is the item to project relationship table. And then in addition to that, you have a module resource dependency table. This is what actually populates that dependency browser. And what you'll see is you've got a from entity and a to entity. And so the example we just saw with import wizard, like the from entity ID, so that import wizard flow has a, from and to. This is how we save it. You can see the entity name. So let's say where from entity name, where from entity name, like, oops, we'll just do import wizard. I always get these kind of these relationships backwards the first time. Yeah, so here, this is, this should be showing me all of the, what's the right way to say this? These are the entity IDs from, what's the right way to say this? I always get this backwards. From to, so this is these are the things that the import wizard depends on.
Okay.
I think I'm saying that the right way. I might be saying it backwards, but either way, it's one way or the other, right? I depend on it or it depends on me.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the from entity ID and the to entity ID. Those are the primary keys of all of the flow, the form, the database table, those sorts of things.
Got it.
So these are the two reference tables where that information would live if you want to see what depends on what.
Okay. And does it tell you the type of thing, or do we just need to sort of isolate that? You know what I mean? So in particular, we're looking at these Azure database dependencies. Is there some kind of grouping variable there, or do we just need to be able to sort of classify them ourselves?
You could join them. That's a great question. So let's do select star from module resource dependency. And then as module resource dependency, and let's join entity header. So all of these things should have an entity header entity header record. EHD. Oops, that's not what I wanted. EHD, and then we'll do on MRD dot from entity ID equals EHD dot ID. Okay, and then we'll just keep our clause here, and we'll save where MRD. Now, if we run this, that should give us module resource. Now, and let me put so let's see, from entity name. I'm just gonna try to clean this up a bit. From entity name, and I think type. Let's see, what do we want from entity header data here? Entity type name, there you go. How about entity type name? Entity type name. And now if I run this should give me, so this is check import, and that thing is an element registration. That's the name we give to flows, forms, and other things. If it was a database like connector of some sort, like a query integration or like a table integration, you would see a different name here. This one just doesn't have that many things that it connects to.
And this is in the header table, we said.
Yeah, I'm joining the entity header data table, which is our master data table. It has an ID as its primary key. That is in this example, the from entity ID, but could also be joined on the to entity ID as well.
Perfect. Okay, so how do we extract this out? Is it just a CSV? Can we get some kind of real-time hooks into this?
You could build a really simple flow that can take, say, these queries we've written here, modified appropriately to your use case, right? Like, let's say we needed this, right? We wanted to run this. Now we can write our own queries against the local database. So if I come to integrations and I come to databases, I have a default local connection here. And let's say I'm going to add a query called, real-time dependency streamer. There you go. Make it fancy. And I'm going to pass this in, and I'm going to say entity name. Yeah, I'll just leave that. I'm just going to leave that all alone. I can run this. Gives me 40 results back. And then what I do is generate that. Now, of course, this would have to be in all environments. This is probably going to be a part of a separate project, but then I build a flow here, right? And this is going to be called get, real-time dependency data or something.
Got it. Okay.
Right, and effectively, now I can put inputs to this thing if I want to call it. I'm building up an API for myself, right? I could define some inputs to this API if I needed. Let's just say it's item entity ID. Like this one is, I'm going to build up I'm not going to do this in my example, but like say I build up a couple accessor flows. There's jobs are to be API endpoints for me. So entity ID, let's assume for purposes of discussion, but not example, I wanted to feed in an entity ID and get back all of the dependencies for that particular ID, right? I could do that by creating these inputs and then passing them in as parameters to this query. I'm not actually doing that. I'm just calling out that we can do that. And then I'm going to come to integration, database, local connection, and I'm going to find that query step I wrote, real-time dependency streamer.
Got it. Okay.
And then this gives me a data type, and I can see the data type here. It's called, you can see the type name right here. But what I can do is come here, and I have a shortcut. Hold on. ignore my count. Why is it not showing me all my data? There you go. And I could select real-time dependency here. And this is just a shortcut to take data and pass it to the end step. And then if I come to configure integration, this might be different based on your current version, just as a note. But ultimately, we need to, in more current versions, we're going to allow this to be called as an API. And then we're going to click View. And View is going to take us to the View Integration Details page. Maybe. There we go. And then this is going to allow me to get the API definition for this. And what I'm going to do is just demonstrate this, copy it. I'm going to put it in a new tab. I would need authentication and everything, right? And then now I've got an API endpoint that can feed me back all that query data. And I can just call that as an API through some other system.
Oh,
if
that's fantastic. Yeah, thank you.
If that's what you needed.
Yeah.
Can I ask like what you hope to glean, or like what the use case you're after here is?
Yeah, so we're building lots of use cases and we're building them quickly, and we're trying to understand the impacts. When we build a new use case, understanding everything that's already accessing that data source, so that if we make a change to the data source, we understand the downstream impacts, but we also understand the opportunities and just honestly the dependencies between the data, so that we're not either creating spaghetti code or having sort of downstream impacts that are problematic, but we're also trying to measure data flow through the system.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'd love to deep dive on this topic more with you if you'd like to talk through there as well. But I mean, right now for the dependency piece, this should give you what you want. We're also looking at adding some new features so that for a project you can get a view similar to like this dependency that I showed you, this dependency graph, but it would only show you like external systems. So you could see, okay, this flow connects to Salesforce, or this flow connects to, SQL and Salesforce, and give you more view into not just what decisions elements it relies on, but what other external systems. You'll probably need to do a little bit of work to validate, to get some of that. One other thing I'll just call out is under system administration, system tools, flow management is the flow structure report. And the flow structure report lists every step in every flow, so that if there's a particular type of step, like you could use this report, and you can call this report as an API if you wanted to get all flows that have REST steps. Or all flows that have database steps and things like that. The previous data gives you, it's at the design, what we sometimes call designer entities. The database's name is element registration. But if you want to look inside of a flow, then you would want to use a flow structure report. And if you want to see particular input values, that would be something that we'd want you to reach out to your customer success manager. We are working to get some default reporting in, but we can give you some custom data sources that will allow you to see like static or dynamic input mappings. So you could see everywhere where a particular like email address or specific REST endpoint value might be used. So there's a lot of opportunities there.
Yeah, that's part of the reason, right, that we're looking to extract it too, is that we can run analysis on it, and we'll try to look at throughput in general.
Great. Well, yeah. Any other questions about that?
No, I really appreciate your help. I'm excited to dive into this deeper.
You bet. Happy to help anytime, please. That's a perfect question for this type of lunch and learn. Anonymous attendee, is there a way to use a flow as an API but have a dynamic input like payload and post to flow? You just have to use post to flow. There's no other way to do it unless you want to assume the dynamic payload is always serialized and then have it be a string input and then deserialize it in some way. Otherwise, you're going to be restricted to using post to flow behavior there. There's no change to the strict input definition format of normal flows called as APIs. Okay. Wonderful questions today. This has been great. Any other questions from anybody? That's all of our question queue so far.
Hello again.
Hey, Chris, what you got?
We've never used a user-defined control before, and I
Okay.
got the bright idea that it might actually do us some favors.
Okay.
I'm thinking, for example, that I could have a user-defined control that would be sort of the UI expression of how I want to show an entity
Yeah.
when I have it on different forms.
Yeah.
So that looks like the straightforward way to do it.
Yep.
We just never done it before. Do you have any advice or warnings about getting into this new idea?
No, that's what it's made for. There's two things here. You got the individual, you've got the individual control, user control, and then you've got a data repeater, which is a list of items, right? If you ever think there might be multiple, then you should use a data repeater, because you can't put two user-defined controls of the same type on one form. That's the only gotcha. Other than that, it works great. They get used all the time by the services team whenever there's a shared UI element. We haven't seen the uptake in that. We've done a lot of work to templatize things and make things copyable. With step templates and flow templates and all sorts of things. We haven't really seen a ton of uptake in those, and user-defined controls fit in that. We've seen a lot of use of data repeaters, but that's more because there's lots of times where you need a list of things shown to a user, and you need that user to select a thing for you, or edit values in a thing. But either way, yeah, no, really easy to use. The only gotcha is you can't use two or more on a single form. They can't handle the bindings of the input and output values appropriately if with two or more
Of the same type.
Two or more of different types is fine, but two of the same type is not supported. That's the only gotcha. That's right.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we've been using data repeaters a lot, I swear, but I just sort of scratch my head about why aren't we using this user-defined control? And I think we have a very strong case for it in one example. And wondered if there is something I am missing. That's all. Thanks.
You bet. And there's another question here about in-velocity step. Does in-velocity step create a temp file on the system? I don't think so. I don't think it does, but I don't know how to validate the answer to that question. I don't think it does, but plenty of things create temp files, so it might, but I do not think that it does. Anonymous attendee. Let's see, how do I validate that? I don't think I know how to validate that. Primary temp. Yeah, I wouldn't even know where to look for that, given the way we store temp files in the file system these days. So I don't think so, but possibly would be the bad answer to your question. All right, anybody else got anything? Great, this is probably my most favorite lunch and learn in quite a long time. I appreciate all the questions from everybody. And tomorrow we've got Ethan. And then we've got our product manager, Eric Wilmerink, on Thursday. So appreciate all the questions, everybody. And I will see you all next week. Have a great afternoon. See ya.